Hey, welcome to this deep dive.
Good to be here.
We're tackling a really timely piece of international diplomacy today.
Absolutely.
It's the UK's decision to attend that big UN conference on Palestinian statehood. It's happening right now, actually, in New York.
That's right, June 17th to 20th.
And you sent over some really fascinating source material for us, reports, some analysis, even insights from a former diplomat.
Yeah, it gives us a few different angles.
So our goal today is to cut through the noise, understand the real significance. We'll look at the UK's position, reactions from DC, the Palestinians, and, well, what might actually happen this week.
It's definitely a complex diplomatic crossroads.
Okay, let's unpack this tightrope walk then. So first off, this conference itself, what exactly is it? Why now?
Well, it's co-hosted by France and Saudi Arabia, and the stated aim is pretty ambitious.
Which is?
To actively move things towards establishing Palestinian statehood. It's built around these working groups.
Working groups.
Really tough stuff. Ceasefire, hostage release, PA reform, reconstruction, and even Hamas disarmament.
Wow. Okay, so these aren't just talking shops then. They sound like they're meant to lay some practical groundwork.
Exactly. The material really highlights that. They're intended to create sort of concrete pathways.
Right.
And what's fascinating here, looking at the analysis you shared, is how this conference kind of builds on existing global recognition.
How so?
Well, most UN states already recognize Palestine, right? So this conference is seen as maybe a lever, potentially, to shift the stance of major Western powers.
Yeah.
Especially after, Macron floated the idea of French recognition earlier.
Ah, okay. Which brings us right to the UK's move. The sources really stress how, well, noteworthy this is, even controversial.
Definitely.
Especially since the U.S. apparently warned allies against it, calling it counterproductive, and Foreign Secretary David Lammy might even be there.
That's the first big point of tension, the material flags. The U.S. pushback.
But the UK went anyway.
They did. However, the sources are also really clear about the UK's stance at the conference.
Meaning?
Meaning, no plans for formal recognition this week. That's the red line right now.
Okay, so they're attending but not making a unilateral declaration in New York.
Precisely. According to the reports, the UK is exploring something else. Conditional recognition.
Conditional on what?
Tied explicitly to things like getting a ceasefire and the return of hostages. The priority, as the material puts it, is substance, not symbolism. They want tangible progress first.
Substance, not symbolism. That feels key. But let's dig into that U.S. reaction more. That diplomat's view in the sources. It sounded pretty blunt.
It did, yeah. The material mentions a State Department cable, reportedly quite stark, warning allies that unilateral moves could disrupt peace efforts.
Disrupt how?
The thinking seems to be it could empower hardliners, maybe undermine quieter diplomacy, and definitely risk diplomatic fallout with Washington.
So the UK is basically walking right into potential friction with its closest ally.
That's the tightrope, yeah. But the UK's counter-argument, as presented in the analysis, is interesting.
One.
They talk about a moral imperative, that this imperative, in their view, outweighs some friction.
A moral case.
And they point to other actions, like sanctioning Israeli ministers Ben-Gvir and Smotrich alongside allies, as sort of evidence they're willing to act on principle, even when it's tough.
So it shows the UK navigating this really difficult balance, values versus alliance politics.
Exactly. And then if we look at the other side, the pressure from the Palestinians is also intense.
Right. The sources mention Ambassador Zomlot.
Absolutely. Hussam Zomlot, according to the material, is pushing hard for immediate UK recognition. He calls delaying statehood a deadly status quo.
And that pressure isn't just coming from the Palestinian Authority, is it? It's domestic, too.
Correct. The reports mention significant cross-party pressure in the UK, Parliament MPs, lords pushing the government to act decisively, or at least signal a clear path during this conference.
Okay, wow. So you've got the conference aims, the UK's conditional stance, U.S. warnings, Palestinian demands. With all that swirling, what does the analyst and the sources think will actually happen this week?
Well, the prediction is pretty clear. Probably no formal UK statehood recognition right now. But the UK is likely to engage heavily with those working groups. Support them, maybe back oversight mechanisms.
And keep signaling?
Yes, reinforce the signal that recognition is definitely on the table, but after those conditions ceasefire, hostages are met.
Okay. And thinking longer term, what if the UK does formalize this conditional recognition path? What are the implications then?
If they really commit, define those conditions clearly. The analysis suggests it could shift the wider diplomatic consensus. It might increase pressure on Israel.
Especially if others follow.
Exactly. That effect gets amplified if other European powers jump on board. But, and this is the big but mentioned repeatedly in the sources, U.S. resistance and ongoing security concerns. Those realities will seriously limit the UK's room to maneuver, no matter what they say their position is.
Right. So, looking back at everything you've pulled from the sources for us, the bottom line seems to be the UK's attendance is cautious, maybe, but it's meaningful.
I think that's fair.
It's them trying to balance this moral urgency they feel with some very real geopolitical constraints. Definitely something to keep watching closely.
Well put. It's a subtle step, but in this environment, it carries real weight. And the material you shared really leaves us with a question, doesn't it?
Which is?
What would those precise conditions for UK recognition actually need to look like, in practice? And how realistic is it to think they can actually be met anytime soon, given how volatile things are right now?
That really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Thanks so much for digging into all this with us today.
My pleasure.
We hope this deep dive helps you, our listener, make a bit more sense of all the layers in this really complex, evolving story. Bye for now.